Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Die-Cast Iron Man 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we are taking a look at none other than the Mark 46, based off its appearance in Captain America Civil War. Finally, Hot Toys have given the 46 another crack, but the question is this a re-release or is it a 2.0? And by the end of the video, I hope to be able to answer that question. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button so you're notified as soon as a brand new review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, I reckon our first clue to the question of reissue or 2.0 is this right here. The box not only looks different, but it functions differently as compared to the original. Up front, a side profile shot of the 46, up top, Hot Toys exclusive on a foil sticker, then down below, Captain America Civil War. On the side of the box, a silhouetted shot of the 46, plus some raised textured writing that says, choose a side. Which is kind of weird, because Cap is long since sold out. Maybe that's Hot Toys hinting that they're considering doing 2.0s for the entire lineup. Up top, we've got Iron Man with his team, then down below Cap with his team. Plus, of course, a bunch of warnings and legal info. On the other side, it says Team Stark, and you do get a nice silhouetted image of Iron Man's faceplate, which turned out to be just a little facade piece of cardboard. You can remove that super easily. Up top, it says Mark 46. Then in the foam block, we have the figure himself. Now, I know, I own the original, but something about this suit got me super excited to receive this guy. First in-hand impressions are, yep, it's a Hot Toys die-cast figure. He is suitably hefty. We do have one tray up on top and another down below. So what we are going to do now is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Starting off with the display base first, you all know normally I'm a huge fan of diorama bases. So, what's the problem this time, Justin? Well, this one looks good, but it doesn't really work well. That's because up front you have a really small section for Tony to stand on, and up the back there's a ton of debris that kind of block the flight pole. So when you have Tony mid-flight, you have to organize his limbs around all this stuff. At the very least, they have used the updated crotch grabber and waist clamp combo, so it's nice and secure. The sculpt, though, is good. It's well textured, it's well painted, there are multiple washes, there's even some depth to the metal grate flooring. Now up the back, all of this debris you have to snap on, it locks in position, and it is slightly rubbery. That doesn't mean the detail isn't good. Once again, I don't have any problems with the way it looks. I'm fairly certain this is supposed to be the missile silo from the end of the film. Up front it says Captain America Civil War. Look, if you can't use the metal nameplates, this is the next best option. Use the logo from the film. It's suitably classy. Next up, we do still retain the battle-damaged chest plate with the crack across the top, and if you have Civil War Cap, you can slot his shield into it. It does just peg onto the chest, and you will see that a little bit later. Now, comparing it to the original, the sculpt is identical. The paint is also very similar, with all the battle-damaged scratches in the same places, although they are a little bit bigger and chunkier on the new one. Especially these scratches up the top here, they look slightly more realistic on the original. But with that being said, I do like the more exaggerated silver dry brushing around the crack. Let's be honest, it's much of a muchness. They look almost exactly the same, and on display, you'd never really pick it. For some swap-out weaponry, we do get his shoulder-mounted missile pods, and these attach with magnets. They do have a decent level of wash in the missile sections. They're painted in silver, plus you have that gorgeous metallic red and the muted gold. There's also some speckling and dirt and grime on the surface, plus all the panel lines are fully painted. For even more weaponry, we do have his swap-out gauntlet rockets, and they also attach with magnets. The little rocket does sit proud of the housing, and these little doors do look like they've opened to reveal this rocket. You get one for either side, and the paint applications are different. You can see a little bit more dirt and grime on the left side, versus on the right, it's just a little bit cleaner. These are also carryovers from the original, blast effects for the hands and also for the feet. These ones peg in position, whereas these ones are attached to the hands permanently. You can see that light does pass through this little wrist port, so when you turn the LEDs on, this arc reactor lights up and so too does the blast effect. The sculpt is rather prickly, so when you're trying to peg this one in position, or slide his hand onto the ball joint, please be really careful. I have spiked myself a bunch of times trying to use these in the past. The paint applications are good. You've got this darker orange and it gets a lot lighter towards the tip. I would have loved to have seen different sizes of blast effects for this new guy, or heck, even different ones entirely. Some smoke trails or different colours. But no, they are exactly the same as what we got before. I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining, I'd still rather have the blast effects than not, but it's 2022, we got the original years ago. I'm pretty sure if you're taking away your Tony Stark head sculpt, you could at the very least give us some new blast effects. As for the hands, they're the usual suspects. Fully articulated fingers and repulsor blasting, plus closed fists already on the figure. The repulsor blasting ones do have a kick up to this palm guard, and they are quite well painted, just like the rest of the suit. What we are going to do now, though, is get Iron Man himself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. I am starting to see why a lot of people wanted a second chance at picking up this figure. Initially, I thought, oh, the MK46 is just okay. But the more I look at him, the more it starts to make a ton of sense. It's blurring the line between the more modern, sleek suits like the 85 and the 50, and the more retro, clunky suits like the 43 and below. This is almost a perfect design. Does that mean it immediately translates to a perfect figure? No. There are still some gaps and some areas where you can see directly through the figure, but from the front, those aren't really all that visible. The proportions are incredible. He's big and bulky where he needs to be, yet you can tell this is a dude in a suit. And the paint applications are gorgeous. He's metallic all over, he's got pitting and weathering and grime on the surface, just to add that little bit more visual interest and detail on the suit itself. For the most part, I love the original, don't get me wrong, but I'm now even more curious to compare that one to this new version. And don't you worry, we will be doing that a little bit later. But before we do, we gotta discuss this helmet. Luckily, because it's the only head sculpt you get here, it's a really good one. The sculpt is carried over from the 1.0, meaning the lines are crisp and clean. The paint applications are beautiful. The red is nice and shiny and metallic. It's a deep, rich, vibrant hot rod red. And the gold is suitably metallic, but at the same time it's done in this kind of satin finish. It does look accurate to the movie. We also have multiple panel lines, some gunmetal and silver sections. Overall, as I said, I'm really happy with the way this looks. It also doesn't sit too high or low on the neck, and it still retains a decent amount of articulation, just like we saw with the original. I do currently have the LEDs turned on in the torso. It's one battery compartment for the body, and the arms and the legs do have their own individual button cell batteries. That means you're going to have to sit down and spend a lot of time getting all those batteries in. But trust me, once he's lit up like a Christmas tree, it is so worth it. Now you can remove the chest plate and there is a ton of detail underneath, and the arc reactor is also suitably well detailed. You can replace that chest plate with the battle damaged one. It doesn't snap on super securely, but I do like that even more of that detail on the underside is now revealed because of that crack along the front chest plate. You do also have the swap out missile pod sections for the shoulders. That was completely unnecessary. I apologize. They're on magnets, they simply snap on, it's really easy. Plus, now you have some added detail for the missile pods up on top. You also have a ton of dirt and grime and pitting and scratching on the surface for the entire figure. Some new collectors run to Facebook when they get their first Iron Man figure and they say, "Whoa, why does my brand new high-end figure have a bunch of scratches right out of the box?" Don't worry, they are supposed to be there. It's just part of the paint job. It's just that little bit more realistic with the dirt and grime and the scuffing. You also have some proper opening flaps around the back, one up the top and one down below. You can also see a bunch more sculpted detail on the underside, but you can see directly through the figure because that gap is quite large. As for the arms, they are mostly plastic except for this piece which is real metal. It's nice and cold to the touch, and just like the rest of him, I know I've already said this, but it's well painted. You do have this spring-loaded elbow cover, so when you bring the arm down, everything is almost entirely seamless. And if you'll remember from earlier, we have these swap-out missile pods. Now, you kind of have one of two options, and I don't think this is officially sanctioned, but the magnet is strong enough that you can just pop it up on top and it adds a little bit more depth. Or if you want to do it properly, I'm going to skip the snap transition, you can remove that panel, then bring this one in and snap it in place. And as you can see, when you push it on, it now looks just that little bit more 2D. I prefer popping it up on top, but as always, it's down to personal preference. For his lower torso, it looks like one seamless piece, but it isn't. This is all jointed. You simply have to pull it apart to expose the articulation. You also have this kind of annoying flap that gets in the way constantly. It wiggles side to side and forward and back. Plus, sometimes if you get too dynamic with your posing, it folds up and tucks underneath. Just be wary of where it is in position with everything else, and you will be perfectly fine. Now, as for the paint applications, it looks exactly the same as the rest of the suit, meaning shiny gunmetal and silver, a nice glossy red, and that soft satin gold. Coming down to his legs, they're really sleek. Just like the Mark 85 and 50, the lines are very smooth. We do still have some tech detail though with this grille section and the mini arc reactors. Plus, up top, there is a bit of a gap here. It's not super ugly like the Mark 50, you can move the legs inwards to hide it just that little bit better, but it's still present. We also have a brand new panel line for this figure. Bringing in the original for comparison, that panel line simply wasn't present. His thigh was a lot smoother. This one on the left, being the new one, is actually more accurate to the movie. As for the feet, they are a little bit more blocky as compared to the 50 and 85, and you have this kind of gear-like track up on top. I really like that. On the underside, multiple different little sections fully painted in silver. And don't forget, you can plug in the blast effect, although please be careful. As you can see, rotating it from the end is the best way to do it, because if you try and push this in, you are 100% going to spike yourself. Then when you have it plugged in position, yeah, it looks like he's blasting off. For a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the new 46 on the left compared to the original with the unhelmeted head sculpt on the right. They stand at the same height. They've got the same proportions, the same articulation. They are the same figure. In saying that though, there are still some differences, even though they are rather subtle. Number one, the paint. The new guy is ever so slightly more vibrant. It's not a big deal. It's something that you're probably not even going to be able to notice on camera. But in person, yeah, it's just a little bit richer. You also have that brand new panel line on his thigh that I'm pretty sure is borrowed from the Mark 47. We of course mentioned that earlier. But other than that, aside from the new base and the lack of the head sculpt, yeah, at the end of the day, these two are super similar. Next up, here we have Civil War Cap. I'm hoping for a 2.0 version that's slightly taller with better proportions, but this guy's really good. They complement each other really nicely. Iron Man is the taller of the two. You can debate that down below whether or not you think that should be the case. but Hot Toys Iron Man figures do always run a little large. Now, if Hot Toys truly are serious about going ahead and doing these remakes of the Civil War figures, it's going to make a lot of people very happy, including me. Going over articulation, do bear in mind this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. Starting off with the helmet, it's on a hinge and ball joint at the top, and another ball joint at the base of his neck. Looking forward to there, going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. Now the arms, I would recommend pulling out first so nothing collides and scratches up the paint. Going out to there, as you can see, they droop down just a little. Going forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder that also hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow that does get you past 90, and then of course a ball joint for his wrist peg. The torso does come apart at 2 separate joints. Going forward to there, going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs, same thing with the arms, drop them down first. As you can see, one side is now a lot lower than the other. Also move these panels up and out of the way to avoid damage. They do go up to there, they will go out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, ratcheted double bend at the knee, and then a bunch of joints for his foot, hinging forward and back, pivot side to side, and toe articulation. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing isn't the fact that we get a diorama display base, you all know I really like them, but it's the fact that it's kind of unusable. As you can see with Tony standing on it, that's the best you can do. There's a little rock here which makes things even harder, so for me, yeah, it looks great, but I just don't really love the way it works. The second annoying thing is no Tony Stark head sculpt. It's a darn shame because that was one of their best ever. But I understand they want to try and preserve the value of the original. Hot Toys, I hate to break it to you, but as soon as you announce this guy, even without the head sculpt, the value of the original plummeted instantly. So at the end of the day, you're not really doing anyone any favors. The third annoying thing is the way these shoulder pads work. I hated them with the original and I hate them here too. I don't know if anyone else agrees, but the spring-loaded, weirdly jointed thing, it just doesn't work here. When you go to move the arm up, it often catches on this piece and it can scratch the paint. And then when you have it sitting a little bit lower, because it's not flexible enough to move up and cover that gap, as you can see, that gap is far more visible. The first cool thing is, it's the MK46. Those who missed out the first time, you can finally add him to your collection. He's one of the best designed suits in my opinion ever. The engineering is really good. And I don't think he's much of a step down from the original. The second cool thing is the brand new panel line, and yes, it's accurate to the movie. Y'all are going to hate me, but the third cool thing is the diorama display base. It's all new for this figure. Yes, I don't love the way it works, but it looks so darn cool. If you're going for a museum style pose, you can have him standing here amongst the rubble. It's straight out of the movie, and as I said a couple of times and earlier, it's really classy. Wrapping up on the Hot Toys exclusive Iron Man MK46 re-release or 2.0. That was the question I posed at the start of the video, so let's answer it. Unfortunately, it's not really that simple. It's a bit of both. I know it's a cop-out answer, but seriously, the display base is new, but it's just as hard to work with as the original one was. It's well sculpted, it's well painted, I like the way it looks, but not really the way it functions. The amount of usable space on the base is relatively small. You do get the battle damage chest plate, the blast effects, the little rockets, and the missile pods. All of that stuff is awesome. But you're missing the one key accessory, the Tony Stark head sculpt. Hot Toys quite clearly kept that back from this release to preserve the value of the original. While I appreciate that as an owner of the original, I kind of would have liked to have seen it here with some updated paint applications for his black eye. And even if you do have a Tony Stark head sculpt to use with this guy, you don't get the collar. Hot Toys, would it have been so hard to include that collar so you still could have used a head sculpt, even if you're not including one? But no, they decided it wasn't worth it. They didn't update the way the lights work. It's pretty much the same figure with some new accessories and also one key one removed. So, if you have the original, do you sell up and pick up this guy? No, I don't think you do. The original is still a really good offering, and this guy doesn't bring enough new stuff to warrant selling that one. If you don't have a Mark 46 though, yes, go ahead and pick this guy up. If you can find him. Hot Toys, you sneaky devils, why did you make this a store exclusive? That means he's really hard to find from domestic retailers, and you're probably going to have to go to an overseas store like I did. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have installment plans and a points-based reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.